This is Shawn and I would like to talk to you about selecting small fruit varieties. As noted on the screen, some of these slides are courtesy of my coworkers. If we look at raspberries first, they really do best with full sun and a well-drained soil. If you have an option, add some organic matter before planting the raspberries. Raspberries need about 1 or 2 inches per week, need a little bit more water when they're producing fruit. They generally need fertilizer just once in the spring, or as determined by the soil test. Here are a couple of recommendations. Basically, they need a high nitrogen fertilizer. If we look at raspberries, they have two main types of bearing when they produce fruit. The summer bearing, or sometimes called June bearing, are day length sensitive. They set the flowers in the fall and then the fruit is produced in June and July. If we look at everbearing or fall bearing, they are not day length sensitive. They will produce fruit on the current year canes and also fruit on canes that grew the previous year, so you get a crop over a longer period of time. Here are some raspberry varieties that have done well in Utah. Canby is kind of the standard. It's thornless. Tulamine is one to consider carefully. It is considered the flavor standard, but as I will show in a minute, it is not reliably winter hardy in northern Utah. And Latham and Royalty is a purple berry, often is used for jam, but can also be used for fresh eating. Here's a couple of other varieties that have done well in Utah. You can see information as to their size, flavor, and relative yield. To look at it a little closer at some of the newer varieties, a project was started by Dr. Brent Black at the USU Kaysville Research Farm. These varieties were evaluated over a period of several years for yield, sunburn, and horntail susceptibility. Also, they were evaluated for taste at the farmer's market. At the farmer's market, participants were given 10 pennies to spread out to their favorite cultivars. When a particular cultivar had been completely consumed, then the voting was stopped, and then the cultivars were ranked based on the daily votes. There was also an amateur taste panel that provided more detailed ratings. Here are the results of the amateur taste panel: Cascade, Tulamine, Cascade Bounty, and Georgia. Then the farmers market attendees, which is a much bigger group of people, and this taste testing was probably influenced by the degree of ripeness. But in this case, the top rated were Saanich, Canby, and Cascade Dawn. Here are the results of the tasting at the farmer's market. You can see the top three. Canby is right here at the top, and then on down you can see the taste panel ratings. As a result of this, some varieties were identified that are probably not going to do well, at least in northern Utah, and here are some of the reasons. Lauren, low yields; Multaire, not favored in tasting; Titan, susceptible to winter injury; Tulamine, not reliably hardy in northern Utah, but would probably do fine in Washington County; and Coho, the lowest yield due to winter injury. A similar process was followed with fall-bearing varieties. Anne was far and away the most favored in taste testing, It is a yellow variety, very sweet, but has low yields. You can see some of the other varieties here and how they were evaluated in the taste test. The amateur panel of 10 people rated these Ann, Polka, and Heritage. Then in 2011, 92 people at the farmers market also participated with the penny voting technique, and they also identified these three as the top as far as taste. Now, taste is very important, but also yield is important, and you can see here are the top three as far as taste, but low yields here for a couple of them, and also Ann was low yielding. Heritage, as we'll see in just a minute, is a late producer, so in some areas it may not work as well. This shows the date at which yields reach 20 and 50% of their total yields, and you can see here that Heritage in this group was the very latest producer. Of course, it totally depends on the weather and frost. A summary of the evaluations: yield, insect susceptibility, winter injury, has been compiled into these two fact sheets here listed on top, and then there is a new fact sheet on overall red raspberry production in Utah that is a good resource available at fruit.usu.edu. Blackberries were also evaluated at the Kaysville Farm and tasted at the farmers market. Here are the ratings of blackberries based on taste: Apache, Arapaho, Triple Crown, Chester, and Doyle's. All of these are thornless. More information on winter injury and other characteristics will be published soon in a blackberry fact sheet. Let's look at grapes. They're an easy to grow crop, do well in most parts of Utah. They need about 150 frost-free days. They produce on 1-year-old canes. They generally need some type of trellising or support. Chain link fence don't work that well because they get all tangled, but chain link fence is an option. A trellis system like this with some wires works the best for grapes. They're quite tolerant of different soil types, but would prefer a well-drained soil. Because they're perennial and have a big root system, they don't need a lot of frequent watering. Similar to raspberries, they need some nitrogen fertilizer in the spring, and here's a recommendation on the amount per plant. If we look at cultivars, Concord is one of the favorites, widely used for juice. Fredonia is another juice grape that is a little bit earlier, and Niagara is a white grape. If we look at table or eating grapes, Interlaken, Himrod are green, Suffolk Red and Candace are red table grapes. You can see the average ripening times here in northern Utah. Jupiter is a newer blue grape that is valued for its muscat undertones in flavor. There's a new grape vineyard at the USU Botanical Center in Kaysville. Here are some grape cultivars to consider based on observations at that vineyard. Vanessa is a very nice mid-season red table grape, and it's known for a very crunchy bite. Emerald Seedless and Italia are later season green grapes that may be hardy in northern Utah. Red Globe is a late season red table grape, has beautiful clusters, big fruit. It was protected by straw bales over the winter and has survived, even though it's more of a Zone 7 plant, and Kaysville is really more Zone 6. There are a couple of other grape varieties that are very popular, would not do well in northern Utah, but are grown in St. George area. Thompson Seedless, which is considered the flavor standard, also dried for grapes. Red Flame is a seedless red eating grape, crisp and very sweet flavor. A common question is, when are grapes ripe? They are ripe when they are mature and taste ripe. Concord grapes are fairly long season and late maturing for the Wasatch Front area. Often the first frost in the fall may coincide with when Concord grapes are ripe. However, if we have a late fall and no frost until November 1st, the grapes will be overripe. So Concord grapes do not need a frost to be sweet, but the cooler weather often occurs as when they are ripening, and it does help improve the taste and aroma. Here's a picture of the vineyard and demonstration orchard at the Botanical Center in Kaysville. You can see the grape vineyard on the left and other fruit trees in the middle of the picture. At the farmers market in Kaysville, we do grape variety tasting as the grapes mature, so you're invited to come and do that. We usually start about mid-August with the grapes and go as long as they're producing. Then we'll do taste testing on peaches and apples. The market is on Thursdays from 5 to 8 p.m. in Kaysville. Here's the address, and you're welcome to go to our Facebook page where we will post what is being tasted each week. There are many varieties of strawberries that do well in Utah. The production declines after 2 or 3 years, and so it's better to replace plants with daughter plants growing in the bed or get new plants from the nursery. There are different bearing types. June bearing comes on in June, just one crop. Everbearing bears in spring and fall. And then there are day neutral that are very similar to everbearing, but do not produce well when it gets very hot. So let's look at some of the different June bearing varieties. Early Glow comes on at the very first of the season. Chandler Honey-O is known for its large size fruit. All Star is known for tolerance of hot weather, and Sparkle has a good flavor for preserving. Here's some Everbearing varieties. Ogallala, Hecker, Fort Laramie's been a good reliable producer. Quinault is known for high yields. If we look at day neutral strawberries, Seascape is very adaptable. Tribute is known for its disease resistance. TriStar is a good producer known for its use in hanging baskets. EV2 is one that looks promising with good sized fruit, a recent import from England. If you're growing fruits and vegetables, there's a new fact sheet, Harvest and Storage of Vegetables and Fruits, available at extension.usu.edu. Goes through the commonly grown fruits and vegetables, how to know when they're ripe, and suggestions on the best ways to store and preserve them. If you're growing fruit, you will probably run into a few pests. You can go to this site, ipm.usu.edu, and there are many fact sheets on different insect and disease problems. If you want to get site-specific recommendations for pest control in your area based on local weather conditions and weather stations in your area, You can sign up for alerts at climate.usu.edu/traps. There's also the Fruit Pest Finder app for your phone. Many of these varieties that I've mentioned will be available at your local garden center. They know what grows well in your area. If you're looking for something unusual or new, here are some online nurseries that you can contact for and see what varieties that they have. Also wanted to mention Dave Wilson. Their specialty is tree fruit and not small fruit, but if you're looking for an unusual variety of apple, peach, etc., that's a good source. One last reference I wanted to mention. This is on organic gardening, a 300-page reference book available from extension.cart.usu.edu. Also has the most extensive variety recommendations for fruit in one source. Thank you. Appreciate your interest in small fruit growing